So we're in the middle of a series, a Christmas series, and here's the whole gist of it if you missed last week. It's behind the scenes of the Nativity scene. Behind the scenes of the Nativity scene. What we talked about last week is this is nice. This is a scene that you and I are familiar with. In fact, billions of people are familiar with this scene, but the problem with this scene is that it's a cropped photo. All the stories behind it are edited out, and this is put in a movie, on somebody's front yard, on a Christmas card, in a song. It's really cool and it's pretty, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes in order to get these individuals here. See, the wisemen, the Magi, they caused a political uproar unbeknownst to them. The shepherds, they were freaked out because they just assumed that when they saw those angels, it was over for them. Poor Joseph had to deal with a broken heart, and his fiancée is pregnant, but it's not his. And Mary's at the center of it all, and now she's got to tell Joseph she's pregnant, it's not his, and the small town gossip. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes in order to get this here. And so for this month of December, we're walking through behind the scenes of the Nativity scene. Now, there is a word that I think that is synonymous with Christmas, and the word is expectation. Expectation. Because you see, I think there are expectations placed on you either by yourself or by others. You got to have the perfect party, you got to have the perfect travel plans, you got to pick the perfect gift, and everything's got to go perfect at the family dinner. There are certain expectations that you have. There are certain expectations that people place on you, but through Christmas, and especially as we get closer to Christmas, oftentimes those great expectations are met with not so great realities. The party's a disaster, you burn the food, the flight gets canceled, they say the awkward thing at the dinner table that makes everybody uncomfortable. Nobody shows up when you thought they would. The custody issues are a mess. You've got unexpected family drama that you, not in a million years did you think you'd have to deal with, especially at Christmas time. A loved one passed away a couple of months ago, and now you're dealing with unexpected grief and loss and sorrow. Unexpected things, unmet expectations happen. And so how do you deal with them? How do you walk through them? But here's the thing. These expectations, I don't think are your fault. Especially around Christmas, around the holidays. It's something that we've figured out together because we look at this and this is so perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And so we take expectations and go, well, it must be perfect. In fact, we even craft Christmas carols based on our expectations of perfection of this scene. And let me illustrate it for you this way. The song, Away in the Manger. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes? Okay, good. The second verse you may not be familiar with, but I'm going to hum a few bars, sing a few bars. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to see if you know the last part of this second verse of Away in the Manger. And here is the song. The cattle are lowing, the poor baby wakes. The little Lord Jesus. Yeah, okay. No crying he makes after a cow moos in his ear. Now, we have 4 kids, all in the nursery, and I promise you, if a cow stuck their head in the nursery and began to moo and our baby wake, crying would be involved by Brianna and myself. Whether the baby or not, who knows, but there's crying involved. Right, but around this, it's just such perfection, and everything's great and sweet, and just all this, ideal cropped photo situation. And so we go, well, if that's perfect, then my life, my expectations, my Christmas must be perfect. And so what do we do when those unmet expectations are met with a not so great reality? And here's what I want you to grasp, just kind of the overarching idea. Obviously, that Christmas is about the birth of Christ, and we're talking about moving forward toward Jesus and what that means. And so the overall idea I want you to understand, we're going to talk about this through the lens of the wise men, is simply this idea, is that your experience of Christ will outweigh your unmet expectations every time. Your experience of Christ will outweigh and outshadow your unmet expectations. But the truth is, there are going to be expectations that aren't met. There are going to be disappointments, there are going to be frustrations, there are going to be heartaches that you got to walk through. But if you can understand and experience Christ this Christmas season in a new and fresh way, I promise you that it will outweigh any and every unmet expectation. And so we're going to look at it today through the lens of the wise men, the Magi, and their experience of Christ. Now, couple of misnomers about the Magi. Let me just kind of clear up. So first and foremost, they were not there on the night when Jesus was born. They were not there with the shepherds. They came more than likely a couple of years later when Jesus was about a 2-year-old. So these guys weren't there at the same time. The other thing is we always think that there were 3 wise men because there were 3 gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Bible doesn't say that there were 3. It says wise men or magi plural, so we know at least 2, but we don't know how many there were. Let me just give you Chris's own opinion and you can take it or leave it. I think personally that there were 4 wise men. 4 wise men. And I think the 4th one was a bachelor who forgot to bring a gift. I think these guys were married and their wife told them and the guy showed up and goes, hey, can the frankincense be from all of us type of deal. So nowhere in the Bible, that's just Chris's idea because I was a bachelor. So, but they experienced Christ and they rolled in a town and caused a ruckus and a political commotion. But you can see in this moment this unique experience and how they experienced Christ when they met him. If you got a Bible, grab it. Go to Matthew chapter 2. If you don't have a Bible, it'll be up on the screens. Matthew chapter 2, and this is the only account of the wise men, the Magi here in Matthew's account. Chapter 2, we'll pick it up in verse 1. It says, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we've come to worship him. They roll into town. We're looking for this newborn king. We've seen his star in the heavenly skies. Where is he? We'd like to worship him. Look what happens. Verse 3, King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers and religious law and asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? In Bethlehem in Judea, they said, for this is what the prophet wrote. And they quote the prophet Micah. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd for my people, Israel. Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, go to Bethlehem, search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too. Stop right there. These wise men, these Magi, they roll into town asking, where is this newborn king of the Jews? We've seen his star. Unbeknownst to them, they cause this political uproar and chaos with King Herod. Now, if you don't know much about King Herod, let me just give you a quick snippet of who he was. He was a ruthless, bloodthirsty tyrant who killed and enjoyed it for sport and entertainment. That is who is sitting on the throne. And extremely, extremely jealous. And so the wise men roll in asking this question. All of a sudden, this jealousy just begins to spew and explode in Herod. And all of a sudden, he brings his religious leaders and teachers going, where is this Messiah supposed to be born? And here's the thing. They knew exactly where he was supposed to be born in Bethlehem, 5.5 miles away from where they were located. And nobody goes but the wise men. Nobody goes to see, they're 5.5 miles away, and nobody goes, nobody searches, but the wise men that roll into town. And if you're searching for Jesus, keep searching. Some of you, you might be so close and you've stopped just 5 miles away. You know the routines, you know the traditions, and you're searching for Christ, but something has stopped you going, I'm done. Keep searching until you experience Christ this Christmas. 5.5 miles away, and nobody goes but the wise men. And they go and look at their experience. Verse 9. After this interview, the wise men went their way. And the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. And look at their experience. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. And they entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary. And they bowed and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. There in this moment, all the miles they had traveled, all the political commotion and chaos and raising up the jealousy of a bloodthirsty king, they come and they see the Christ child and they experience Christ. I'm fully aware that there are expectations that you hoped would happen. You hoped there would not be family drama. You hoped you would not battle loneliness. You hoped that they would visit you. You hoped that you would be engaged. You hoped the custody issue would be a lot smoother than it is, but it's not. And it's so easy to allow disappointment to haunt you between now and Christmas. Oh, but if you experience Christ in a new and fresh way, I promise you, it would outweigh and overshadow any unmet expectation you're walking through. And let me just point out a couple of ways that you can practically experience Christ this Christmas. The list is, could be infinitely long. Just a couple of ways that the wise men did. Look at verse 11. It says, they entered the house, saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed and worshiped him. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm the wise men and I am looking for a newborn king who has a star in the heavenly cosmos, I'm not expecting that child to be the house of commoners. I'm expecting royalty. I'm expecting a palace. I'm expecting power. I'm expecting opulence. But the wise men walk in and there's this child with these commoners in this house, and it says they bowed down and worshiped him. First way that you can experience Christ this Christmas is experience him this Christmas by bringing him your worship. By bringing him your worship. Now, if you're not a church person, worship is a strange word. If you are a church person, you think worship are the 3 songs that you sing before I get up here. Let me explain to you what worship is and what worship means, what that word means, and I think you'll be able to relate to it a little bit better. That word worship is the same word in the original language used to describe the affection and adoration that a dog shows to its owner. Now, how many of you in this room, you are dog people? Like you have a dog, you love dogs, like that's your thing, you're dog people, okay? You know that when you walk into a room and your dog's just so excited to see you, like they just love you, and that's what that word worship means. That affection, that adoration, that complete dependence upon you. We have a dog. He's a Chiweenie. We named him Cowboy for obvious self-esteem issues that he struggles with. You're going, what's a Chiweenie? It's half Chihuahua, half Dachshund, Brianna, whatever, all right? So it's a tiny little dog. And anyway, we got him when we were first married. And when we were first married, like our world revolved around him, right? And let me just say this. If you're newlyweds without kids, having a dog and kids are not the same thing, all right? So we thought, oh my goodness, we're ready for kids. Not really. So anyway, but we thought we were. We had this dog, and our world revolved around this dog. Then we had a kid. Then we had another kid. We had another kid. Then we had a 4th kid, and we're like, Cowboy who? Oh yeah, it's the furry thing running around that vacuums up after these other human beings. And so now Cowboy is Daniel's dog, our oldest son. And Cowboy and Daniel are inseparable, inseparable. Daniel takes care of Cowboy. He waters him, he feeds him, he takes him out to use the restroom. Cowboy cuddles up to him in the blankets to watch TV. Cowboy loves Daniel. He is completely dependent upon Daniel. He shows adoration and affection for Daniel. When Daniel walks in the room, Cowboy's excited. And that's the same emotions that you and I should have toward Jesus this Christmas. Complete adoration and affection for who he is. The fact that he's Emmanuel, God on earth, that he would leave heaven and come hang out with human beings. It's just, I can't believe I'm around him. I can't believe I'm near him. I can't believe he loves me. It's this adoration and affection and complete dependence upon him. Right, so all too often when you roll through these unexpected things that happen, these expectations that are frustrating and disappointing, you're going, I'll man up, or I'll pull my bootstraps, I'll plow through it. And Jesus is in the rearview mirror, and you're just going, Jesus, keep up. And there's no complete, reliance upon who he is. If Daniel doesn't feed Cowboy, Cowboy's in the world, Cowboy completely relies on Daniel. And you and I, we should completely rely on Christ, going, this isn't what I expected, but Jesus, if you don't show up, I don't know I'm going to make it through it. Jesus, if you don't intervene, if you don't work in my life, this is not what I expected. But Jesus, I'm completely reliant upon you, and I adore you for who you are, even though this expectation isn't what I wanted. This party, it was a disaster. The family dinner table, they brought up a topic and World War III started. I thought family was coming to see me, but they went to see the other side of the family, and now I'm battling loneliness. There's some unexpected family drama that no way in the world that I think I'd have to deal with, especially on Christmas. I thought they would be a lot nicer when it came to who got the kids on what day for custody, but man, this is a disaster. Can't believe they died a month ago, and I'm walking through grief and through sorrow. Right, all these unmet expectations, you go, I'll just figure it out myself. The wise men came when they saw their first thing was they worshiped Jesus. You want to experience Christ in a new and a fresh way. You want that experience to outweigh and overshadow those unmet expectations. Begin with worship. Let's begin by going, you know what? If Jesus, if you don't show up, if you don't intervene, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm completely reliant upon you. And Jesus, thank you for who you are. This is not what I wanted to walk through, but I praise you for being Emmanuel, God with us. And I celebrate you regardless of what I'm walking through this Christmas. Experience Christ through your worship. Let me show you the second idea. The second part of verse 11. It says, then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Really nice gifts. Really nice gifts. The very best that they had. Now don't miss this. These would be gifts that would be given to a king, obviously, but they don't roll into a palace. They don't walk into royalty. They don't walk into mom and dad being a king and queen. They walk into a commoner's house and they see this newborn child. They bow down and worship and they give him the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They didn't see this child with commoners and go, here's some bread and a basket and maybe some more swaddling clothes. Maybe that'll help out. They brought their best and they gave their best to the Christ child. And this Christmas, you want to experience Jesus in a new and fresh way. Bring him your best. Give him your best. See, all too often when it comes to Christmas, Jesus gets the leftovers because we're so busy with everything else. He gets leftover emotions, leftover attitude, leftover energy, leftover patience, leftover humility. When this Christmas begin by worshiping and then going, Jesus, I'm giving you my best. This is not what I expected in this situation. They disappointed me. They let me down. I had hoped for something different, but I'm walking through this. And so Jesus, I'm going to give you my best attitude, my best humility, my best patience, my best peacekeeping. My best of what I am goes to you. The only thing that is, that you should be giving is first, not second, not third. But all too often, Jesus gets our leftovers. I mean, we all know the only good leftovers happen right after Thanksgiving. But other than that, it's the best. It's our first. Did you know this inherently? When you love someone, when you care for someone, when you adore someone with affection, you give them your best. You don't give them second, you don't give them third, you don't give them what's left over, you don't spend everything else, you give them your best. Now, I'm from San Antonio, Texas. Grew up there, spent majority of my life in San Antonio, Texas. So what I'm about to explain to you, I think I'm a bit of expert in, maybe even a connoisseur, one may say. And so I've had this since I was, 3 years old when we moved here 3 years ago, spent that time in the San Antonio area. And so I like to think that I'm an expert. I'm a connoisseur in chips and salsa. You know what I'm talking like? Good chips and salsa. And so I'm a bit of a snob about it. So if it's good chips and salsa, I appreciate it. If it's bad chips and salsa, I'm a little snooty about it. I mean, that's just the way I was brought up. Now, there's nothing better than going to a Mexican food restaurant and they bring out the chips and they're still hot from the fryer. Do you know what I'm talking about? And like the paper is soaked with grease. That's when you know right there. Now, in a bag of chips, there's a couple of types of chips in there. There's the regular ones, and then there are the ones that are curled up a little bit, and then there are the ones that have like 2 or 3 wedged together for one chip. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. How many of you are like me, and those are your favorite chips in that basket? Let me just see if you're my people. Yes, okay. Good. Oh man, I feel so good. Okay. Because someone goes, man, Chris, you're kind of quirky. And I'm like, so is everybody else. So the curly chips and the 2 and 3 double and triple chips, I love those chips. The problem is, I married someone who also loves those chips. And I found this out like year 1 of marriage. Like we'd been married just a few months. We were eating at a Mexican food restaurant and I start eating chips and hot sauce and grabbing my favorite chips. She goes, what are you doing? I was like, I'm eating chips and salsa. She goes, no. Why are you grabbing those chips? I was like, because they're the best chips. She goes, I know. I like those chips too. I was like, I wish you'd have told me this before we got married. I mean, that would have, changed a lot. Just kidding. And so it became a thing, and I'm not making this up, but it became a gesture of love when the other would leave the curly chips or the double and triple chips there. Now, we would notice that. We'd be like, oh my goodness, you left me a curly chip. You love me, thank you. And I'm like, I do. Like, 5 love languages. The 6th one is chips and salsa, whatever. So, you love, and that became, why? Those were the best chips. And I loved her and she loved me. And so the way we would show that would not be going, hey, you can have the normal ones. Go, no, you can have the curly ones. You can have the double and triple. Why? Because those are the best. When it comes to experiencing Jesus this Christmas, it's not, well, whatever's left over of my energy, of my finances, of my resources, of my time, of my schedule. Jesus, it's yours. It's no. You get the best. You get the first. You get the primary one. You get my absolute best, and then I'll back down from there. I want to experience Jesus in a new and fresh way. Begin by worshiping with your adoration and affection and complete reliance upon him. And don't give him your leftovers. So what do you do with all of this? What do you do when you walk in and you're going to have unmet expectations all around between now and Christmas? Here's what I'd love to you. Just begin today in your own way. And it's simply to change your perspective this Christmas from unmet expectations to experiencing Christ. Change your perspective from unmet expectations to experiencing Christ. You're going to walk into Christmas is going to come and unmet expectations are going to happen. And if you constantly look for them, that's all you'll see. You disappointed me. You let me down. You didn't show up. You didn't ask me to marry you. You had custody issues. These expectations are unmet and this is all you focus on. Or you can change your perspective, still see the same thing in Christmas going, Jesus, I'm going to worship you in a new and fresh way. Jesus, I'm giving you my absolute best attitude, my absolute best patience, my absolute best perseverance and peacekeeping. Jesus, I'm giving you my best and my worship because I want to experience you a new and fresh way. Change your perspective. And I'm going to show you a photo that I think will help you remember this idea of changing your perspective, seeing the exact same thing, but from 2 very different perspectives. So let me just go ahead and show you this photo that I took this week. That is exactly what you think it is, all right? So there's nothing about, so we were on a trail and this mule was walking down, obviously, with firewood. And I took this picture, honestly, just as a joke. I was like, oh, this would be a great picture to show Brianna. So I took that picture and I was going through my photos and all of a sudden I noticed, if you see the guy on the left-hand side, that's my buddy Dean. Dean is taking a picture of the exact same thing at the exact same moment in time as I am. But he and I are seeing 2 very different perspectives of this animal. I promise you, Dean's perspective is way prettier than my perspective is. But what I'm looking at, this is more than likely what unmet expectations look like. And if all you go to Christmas going, this is all I'm going to see, this is probably what your Christmas is going to look like. But if you change it and you switch going, I'm still going to go into Christmas, but man, I want to experience Christ in a new way. I want to experience Christ in a fresh way. And so Jesus, I'm going to worship you. I'm going to adore you. I'm going to bring you my best. I'm going to give you what's first and not leftovers. And oh my goodness, that experience of Christ, I promise you, will far outweigh and overshadow your unmet expectations. They left you. They lied to you, they disappointed you, there's loneliness, there's sorrow, there's grief. All these things that you expected did not happen. I get it. Man, what if you go, you know what, today, Jesus, I'm going to worship you in a new and fresh way. I'm going to bring you my absolute best. The wise men, they did that. And their lives were forever changed. And I want you to finish up and look at verse 12. Look what happens. It says, when it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route. For God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. Don't miss this about the wise men, about the Magi. They came following a star, but they left following God. What brought them to this scene, this moment, was a star that they followed, but they left changed following God. God directed them and led them where to go after that. It doesn't really matter what brought you or how you got here. Maybe you came here out of guilt or out of shame. Maybe you did some things this past week or last night that you're going, oh my goodness, I better go to church. Maybe you're here because this is just what you do and it's just Sunday morning for you. Maybe you're dating him or her and you're trying to impress them, so you're at church. Maybe you're the biggest skeptic in the world and you're sitting there with your arms crossed, just seeing what this whole church thing is all about. I don't really care what brought you here or why you're watching online, but what matters is how you leave. And if you'd experience Christ in a new and a fresh way, it would change your life forever and how you leave. So maybe you're here because it's a tradition. Maybe you're here because it's guilt. Maybe you're here because you're a skeptic. Maybe you're here because you're trying to impress him or her, but you're here. What brought them to this moment was a star, but they left following God. And that's my hope and my prayer. Whatever brought you here, it brought you here. My prayer is that you'd experience God in a new and a fresh way and you'd leave following him. Let me pray for us. With every head bowed and every eye closed, maybe just there in the quietness while Sean's playing, just go, man, Lord, it's been a minute since I've truly worshiped you. Always kind of thought worship was the 3 songs before Chris, but man, today, Jesus, I give you my adoration, my affection, my complete reliance upon you. Try to do things myself. I've tried to just muscle through it. And Jesus, there ain't no way I'm muscling through this Christmas. Jesus, please show up in my life and in my heart. Maybe you've been given Jesus the seconds or the thirds or the leftovers. Maybe today I say, Jesus, today I give you my best, my first, what's primary. If he is number one in your life and you do adore him and you do rely upon him, then you give him your best. Say, today, Jesus, I give you first and foremost, and everything else falls into place after that. Father, I pray for all of us. Forgive us for going through the motions of Christmas, for just walking through it, hoping to get through to December 26th. Lord, I'm fully aware as a pastor that there are some heavy disappointment, heartache, sorrow, grief, frustration, feelings of being overwhelmed here in this room and watching online. And God, my prayer is that right now, in their heart of hearts, God, that you would drive into them your love, your compassion, your forgiveness, the fact that you were Emmanuel, God on earth. Pray that you'd go before them. Pray that you'd comfort them. I pray that they would walk out of this room or leave their computers or their screens completely changed and following you. We love you, Jesus, and ask these things in your precious and holy name. Amen.